Am I still wearing the shirt from last video? Yes, I am. Did I just put glasses on to make it seem like I had changed my whole wardrobe? Yes, I did. Are you reading webtoons? Why are you not reading webtoons? You should be reading webtoons. All right, that's the end of the video. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. You should be reading webtoons. If you do not know what webtoons is, and I'm gonna say webtoons instead of webtoon. It's webtoon, but I'm gonna say webtoons because it's just, I'm sorry. Webtoons is a app or a website, either one. You can get it on your phone on the App Store. I have an iPhone, so the App Store, but you can probably get it on an Android as well. You can also just type it up on the internet and the website will pop up right away. So Webtoons is the new anime. No, I'm kidding. That's too far. Webtoons is the new comics, web comics online, where anybody and everybody can publish web comics. And there are different ways that you can publish it. There's basically two ways that you can publish it, actually, but I'll get to that in a second. Webtoons gives the opportunity basically for artists, writers to collab, or just artists become writers, writers become artists, whatever, and tell these amazing stories. And I love it so much. There are different ways that you can format it. You can format it closer to a typical Webtoons format, which I'll probably try to screen record and put it somewhere on this screen right here. You can also just do it like a regular typical comic book panels, although I wouldn't suggest that because most people, including myself, read it on our phones, so it's better to have bigger unorthodox panels versus a typical comic book panel. But anyway, not the point. So, Canva versus originals. Canva is basically a self-published platform on Webtoons. If you want to create a story, you find out about format, you find out about everything, you draw, you write your dialogue, your characters, whatever, you publish it yourself, good to go. You can make money, get enough followers, I believe, or likes or something like that. Basically, it's kind of like YouTube, but for Webtoons. Now, when it comes to originals, usually you'll start out as Canva, self-published, and then if you get picked up by Webtoons, you move over to originals. Originals are basically supported and featured by Webtoons. Basically, you will definitely get paid for what you do, and Webtoons will actually help you. They'll give you editors and stuff to help you really make your webcomic succeed on the platform. It's almost like the difference between self-publishing and publishing as a writer. You can do it yourself or find a company that helps you market, sort of, and mostly just helps you to get your book into the right people's hands. So it's basically the same way with Webtoons. Some people will argue that originals are usually better, more elite when it comes to the art and storytelling. I would almost agree with that if I did not find certain Canva or self-published stories that I actually enjoyed just as much as originals, which I will give my recommendations soon in this video. That's basically the difference between the two when you get on the app. But I highly recommend you look into Canva, people, mostly because of this segue that I'm about to do. Wasn't this a great segue? I am self-publishing with my friend Sabina B. We are publishing a webcomic called Asylum Avenger. And basically, the premise of the story is that you have this character, her name is Valerie, and she was given to the asylum at 12 years old from her family. And she was tortured, broken from this asylum, and she escaped almost 10 years later. She now is taking revenge on the asylum that broke her sanity. Basically, the tagline is set in the late 1800s, betrayed by her family, tortured by the asylum, she escaped with enough sanity to exact her revenge. So, I'm very excited to be working on this with my friend B. It's a very unique opportunity for me to publish a story for once in my life. This feels more important to me, and it deals with mental illness, it deals with the late 1800s, it deals with prejudice, it deals with sexism, racism, all these other things. But the main point of the story is about trauma, is about mental illness, is about Valerie's backstory and her seeking revenge. So I'm very excited about this. If you guys want to learn more about it, please follow us on Twitter or on Instagram at Albina Comics, which is basically our comic production name. I have been posting sneak peek quotes, aesthetic boards, all different kinds of things, and we'll be posting more art and things. As of right now, I have been working on writing Act 2, and I hope to finish that soon, but I will have more details if you follow us at Albina Comics, I promise. I obviously, as with anything that I have a passion for, I binge it like a crazy mofo. I have been binging Webtoons comics for a while now. I have binged a lot, and I still am. It's like anime, but not. Please don't come at me. It's just the easiest example to give. Don't kill me. I have recommendations. I usually cut these parts out, but this time I'm keeping it in. Keep it in. I'm gonna work from my top 11 to my number one favorite one. So I'm gonna do a quick synopsis for each of them. If you don't want that, then I'm sorry, but I have to shout out these people. They work so hard, okay? I'm sorry. Number 11 is Dior. Dior, to be honest with you, it's slightly hard to explain. Basically, most people in this world have magic. To not have magic makes basically no sense. If you've ever watched the anime Black Clover, it's kind of like that. And Dior follows this one main character who does not have magic and is kind of, I guess, bastard son in the family. We always love those. We always love the outcast. Without spoiling too much, basically it follows him discovering things about his family and about the magical world that he lives in and powers that be and possible conspiracies in the kingdom. Who knows? Number 10. I'm gonna mispronounce this one, but it is called Johangela's Hole. And this is a canvas, as well as Dior was a canvas. Sorry, probably should have mentioned that. These two are canvases. I believe the rest of them are originals, but I love it absolutely. I actually follow the artist on Instagram, and the art is absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely unique. A lot of these stories I follow not just because the stories are fascinating, but because I love the art and I love how unique the art is. And this art is beautiful, absolutely stunning. The story is a very interesting one that is still unraveling, but basically there's this main character who her ancestor was a very bad person. We still don't know why she's a bad person or why she did what she did, but basically now her reincarnated self, who doesn't have any recollection of who she was, is being haunted by the very people that her ancestral person killed and tortured, which is just absolutely fabulous. Number 9, a lot of these stories are basically fantasy, dark thriller, horror stuff, because that's where I am in my life right now. Some of them are romance, but anyway, The Red King. And I love the art style of this one as well. Absolutely fantastic, and I find the story very fascinating. The main character, Ivan, he is basically also kind of like a bastard kid in his family, and it takes place in like the modern age. He is seeing things that the rest of his family are not seeing, and he is going on this journey of trying to figure out what is going on, why things are happening. Now, his family had this weird mysterious tree in their penthouse, and this weird bird-looking woman steals this golden apple, and he has to find a way to get it back because apparently it has something to do with his mother, who no longer is alive. I think the story is absolutely fantastic. I think it's very interesting. I love Ivan. I think he's absolutely adorable. He is the epitome of what most girls would call the attractive emo punk kid, and he's absolutely adorable. Please don't let the FBI come after me. He's 18. Calm down. Number 8 is Not Even Bones. I think this premise is absolutely fascinating, just like The Prodigal Son, in that it deals with creatures that are not fully human, but they are human. They look human, and they get their pleasure high from people's pain, which is a big fat yikes. But these aren't the only creatures that actually exist in this world. The main premise is basically that Nina, her mom, is like an assassin slash bounty hunter for these creatures, and she sells their body parts on the black market, and Nina is the person that usually dissects these bodies. But when her mom brings home a boy, Nina starts to kind of have a conscience and lets her go. But then Nina is then believes to be, which is still up for debate, that her mom in return sold her to the black market because Nina's not what she seems. So I love the art for this one. I'll probably say that for all of these series. I love the art for Not Even Bones. It's very unique. It's very kind of watercolor-ish, and I love it absolutely. And I love that there's also a kind of bilingual dialogue that goes on the show when Nina is speaking Spanish and then it translates to English for us English non-Spanish speaking ignorant people. And I think that's absolutely fabulous and a great way to show varying languages while also helping readers to still understand what's happening in a scene. Number 7, Lore Olympus is taking webtoons by storm, especially since season 2 has finally arrived. I have so much to say about Lore Olympus, but I'm going to try to keep it short. I think this series is fantastic. It is a romance story about the Greek gods, but they live in a modern day age, even though we, or the humans, are still in ancient Greek times, but the gods themselves are in modern times, like our modern times, which I think is absolutely an interesting, fascinating, fabulous concept. And the story mostly revolves around Persephone and Hades and their blossoming ups and downs of a romance relationship. And it's still questionable, the age difference, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. But I think that the art style is absolutely stunning, just like Not Even Bones. It's a mixture of watercolors and just, I don't know, I'm not an artist, B is, but it's just absolutely beautiful. The story is fascinating. I will say, as a warning, but also as an just like applauding, they deal with sexual assault, which I'm all an advocate for. They just do it with such grace, but also like realistic dealing with that trauma. And I applaud the writer Rachel for that. I really do. I am not the biggest romance person, but that doesn't mean I don't have a soft spot for it. And this is one of them that I definitely have a soft spot for. Number 6, speaking of romance, Subzero. I highly recommend this. This was actually the first story I read besides another one on the list, and I fell in love with it so hard, so fast. It's kind of disturbing. This is also a romance story, by the way, and yet this one has me always ready to just scream and just like curl up in a ball and have a seizure, because it's just so absolutely steamy and adorable, and I cannot deal with this it's fine. I'm fine. Anyway, this story deals with kind of a ancient Asian vibe and 2 kingdoms, and it deals with the dragon clans, the red dragon, the blue dragon. Yes, there are dragons. It deals with these 2 dragons, and basically the 2 kingdoms are at war with each other for a while now, and because of that, there is an offer made of an arranged marriage between 2 characters, and basically together they have to marry each other and help the kingdom find peace and maybe fall in love, maybe have some good sexual attention. There may be more than meets the eye in the kingdom. Maybe some people don't want peace. Ooh, I don't know. Ooh, saucy. Okay, just read it. Okay, told my friend Joy to read it, and she's been addicted ever since. That's what you need during this quarantine. You need addictions. You don't need sanity. You don't need sanity. You need addictions. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Number 5 is I'm the Grim Reaper, which, by the way, is like the best title ever because it's just so simple and straight to the point. If you like anime style drawing and action, then you will love I Am the Grim Reaper. Basically, based on the title, I think you can tell what it's mostly about. This girl who goes by Scarlet, she basically becomes the Grim Reaper instead of paying for her sins in hell and makes a deal with the devil. From there, she basically has to reap people at least once per day, otherwise she will go to hell. We don't know why she was supposed to go to hell. She doesn't have her memories from her past life or anything like that, and she's also trying to better understand and control her abilities as a Grim Reaper her. And she also meets up with this detective who kind of helps her be human. And yeah, I don't want to spoil much of it, but I will say that Scarlett and Chase for life. Number 4 is Shiloh. I have no idea how in God's country to explain this plot at all. And honestly, I'm not really gonna try to. I just recommend you definitely read it. And I guarantee you by the end of it, it is not going to be what it started out to be. By the end of it, which it's coming back and I'm looking forward to it. By the end of season 1, I was basically just like, what the actual freak. Can't explain enough how good this show is. Like, I just can't. It's in my top 4. Like, please read it. Just please read it. I can't explain it. All I can say is futuristic steampunk vibe mixed with voodoo magic. That's about it. Number 3 is Purple Hyacinth. This comic, I literally can't. This was the second story I read after I first got on Webtoons besides Subzero, and I have been hooked ever since. Season 2 just recently came out. I just fast passed like the rest of this month and I can't. It basically is mostly set in kind of a late 1800s, early 1900s vibe, and it follows a police officer, an assassin who have to work together to stop a assassin group. And there is mystery, there is thrills, there is action, and there is romance. There is romance. There's romance. There's romance. I love Kyrian. I think he's the most gorgeous man I've ever seen in my life. And though I do not support everything he does, I still think that this comic, mixing everything up today, this comic is freaking fantastic. The art alone, done by Sophism, is freaking fantastic. The line work is both neat and messy, and I love it. I don't even know how they do the lighting. Like, the thing that I love most about this series is that Webtoons gives you the option of sharing music. You can put music to certain scenes or the whole chapter. It could be music that you've made, music someone else has made, that you've worked with, collabs with, whatever. Out of all the series I've read so far, has basically a soundtrack, and it's freaking fantastic. It's actually on Spotify, I think. I'll try to put a link in the below if I remember. I listened to it. It's beautiful. The artist Sophism, she basically, and someone else, I don't have the name, I'm sorry. They basically orchestrated the soundtrack, and it's friggin' fantastic. And it just helps encapsulate more of the story and helps you just fully invest and be in the story that's being told. It's like, I can't not brag about this show enough. I wish I knew these people because it's just freaking fantastic. The writing, the art, all of it. I love it. Oh my gosh, read it now. Number 2 is Marinas Therapy. Now, this story is simple to explain, but it's not as simple as it reads. Basically, it follows this woman, Malvina, and her therapy and her patients, but there's a lot more to the stories actually, than meets the eye. And there's a lot more to the clients that she has than meets the eye. Basically, there are stories within stories of this series. I have never seen this done before. I think it's absolutely fabulous. The stories all equal to this overarching thing, but they're each separate stories within themselves at the same time. And I think that's absolutely genius. As a writer, I wish I could write like that. It's definitely not easy to do that, but I find it absolutely fantastic, and it's very disturbing. So fair warning, it is disturbing, but I still think that it's an amazing series, and I'm glad I came across it. Procrastinating for a while to read it, but I'm glad I read it. It was mind-blowing. It's one of those nice mind-blowing experiences. So I definitely highly recommend it. Number one is Bastard. Oh my God. This story, I was telling my friend yesterday, this story is just underrated. I swear it is as underrated as the anime Erased. Like, this story is freaking fantastic. The writing is fantastic. The art is fantastic. The pacing is fantastic. I'm running out of oxygen. This is so good. It is so good. This series is fantastic. It is literally Prodigal Son, but slightly different in that the main character's father is a serial killer, and it is so fantastic. And there is even more to to the story than that, but I don't want to spoil anything more than that. All I can say is that it's absolutely fantastic. The representation of trauma, the representation of not being raised normal. Like I was saying in my last video with Prodigal Son that people were upset because Malcolm's not normal enough, even though he was raised by a serial killer, where this show really shows you how unnormal you can be being raised by a serial killer. And oh my God, I never really paid for coins. You can pay for coins on this app to read ahead. And this series in particular, you do have to pay for coins to read the rest of the series, even though it's already ended for a year or so, or more than that now. And I was more than willing to give my money to this app to read this whole series. It is so worth it. I can't explain enough how well written this comic was. The very fact that I was on the edge of my seat of almost every episode, that is just such good writing. Not just for a webtoons format, but just writing in general. It was great writing. The pacing was fantastic. It never felt like it was going too slow or too fast, and yet I felt like everything was just so intense, because it was. Like, I can't explain it enough. This comic is so underrated, I feel like. Especially now with other comics always coming out, that this is being maybe forgotten. I don't know, but you have to read this. If you can deal with gore, thrills, good damn writing, please read this. It is so good. It is so, I can't. If you're not reading webtoons, you should be doing it. If you're not doing it already, what are you doing here? Stop watching my video and go read it. Go download the app, start reading them. I gave you enough recommendations to get you started. Go do it. All right, good.